last line on page 83 of the same verbatim report. And the quotation, I believe, would cover how far the witness's opinion is you would be able to go.
Could the Commission possibly respond?
I would read it into the record again. It's already there. His approach to power was, once I get power, I have to die with this power, and if you play with my power, I will hurt you. I believe that may cover the extent that Mr. Ram is wishing to highlight.
May I just say that there is, I find some value in the intervention made by Mr. Williams, in the sense that if there is expressing an opinion, you should establish a factual basis first before you are allowed to express that opinion. So that's why I was checking the records to see what are the factual instances, so far as he's concerned, that would have informed the opinions he has already given. And if you want to take it further, you definitely have to be based on the factual instances which he has given, and not enlarge his opinion.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Williams, you did ask for
No, Mr. Rob.
a review,
So you raise your objection, sir.
a review of the transcript reveals that that view was expressed on the last occasion Mr. Dunson testified, and he did give support to the review. Now, as a political operative at the time when Mr. Vernon was alive, it seemed to me that it is quite proper for him to express a judgment about how he viewed power. What is more important is not that he has expressed that judgment, but how he supports it. And so the more important question is not that he said that and expressed the judgment, but what is the basis for it? And he did give a basis for it, which you may wish to challenge, you may wish to test him on that basis, but I think the question is quite proper.
Mr. Chairman, I think it brings us to a procedural point. When I look at the record, it doesn't reflect my objection to this evidence at the time. I have objected to it, and this is not the first time I'm saying that the evidence go on his mind. Mr. Norman McLean came here and said if he wanted him to telephone somebody or die, the final person in his mind. So Richard Vernon himself, I think, was before me. The record doesn't reflect the objections. I made this objection before.
When you say that the record is deficient,
What do we do? I mean, if you appear that this was unchallenged, but it was in fact challenged. I'm sure there are members who remember that I challenged, but it doesn't reflect it.
Please be advised, everyone, that this is a verbatim transcript, and every single challenge lodged by Mr. Williams has been recorded. There are many, particularly when other lawyers have been asking where Mr. Williams feels that they're going outside the scope of what they're allowed to answer. But I must say it is a verbatim transcript, and if necessary, we can go through and identify the various areas.
No, that'd be good. If you could show me some illustrations of what you're saying.
Mr. Chairman, simply because I have an electronic version of the transcripts, Mr. Williams' objection would have been on page 33 of the transcripts. At least that's one instance, the electronic version.
Mr. Peters, would that be the 2nd of July or 25th of June? Would you assist me, please?
That's the 25th of June.
Thank you.
your imagination, Peters, is slightly different from ours.
I see.
I'll just the printed version.
I'll just read it into the record.
Yes.
There was an objection from Mr. Williams, and he says, Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Ogunse arrogating himself or to himself to decide what was in the mind of the PNC. And then Mr. Lindsay continued speaking, and then you said, well, this is his judgment only, he's entitled to express his judgment, and he's very much within the period of consideration. And then Mr. Williams came back on and he says, no, I understand, but is he going to get into the mind of the PNC question mark? He can express himself otherwise, but he is suggesting what the thinking of the PNC was.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. I think it's on page 29 of the printed version. And regard Mr. In fact, the chairman is consistent. And Mr. Williams, as Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Bunce arrogating to himself to decide what is in the mind of the PNC. And Mr. Bunce said, well, I'm making a political judgment as a political activist in the period. And the chairman says, his judgment only is entitled to express his judgment. And he's very much within the period of consideration. And Mr. Williams then says, no, I understand, but is he going to get into the mind of the PNC? He could express himself otherwise, but he's suggesting what he's thinking of the PNC.
So it does appear, Mr. Ram, that this matter did come up before, and that the chair ruled on it, and the ruling discusses, as it's the same. Mr. Ganser is entitled to express his judgment. He was a political activist at the time, and he's entitled to express his judgment. But the political commentators do the same.
I saw it in today's papers, in fact.
Sir, that would be libelous. I don't know what. If Mr. Ram goes outside, let him go outside and say, let Mr. Bunce go outside of this room and make those statements.
Of a dead person.
You must have to have some substratum of fact.
But that's the point. That is
What is he predicating this?
that's where you can challenge it. You can probe his fact basis to the judgment, but he's entitled to express the judgment. What you're entitled to do is to probe the fact basis and suggest to the commission that there is no fact basis for it.
Mr. Chairman, we would agree to disagree, but I would tell you presently now, if Mr. Bunce follows your advice and goes out to say anything about the president or any minister, he will end up in a lawsuit. But he has to have a basis, some substratum of fact upon which to predicate his opinion.
And that's why that is what you are challenge him on and the probe.
And he doesn't have it. There's no.
But I wouldn't restrict him from expressing the judgment. At the end of the day, what value we attach to that judgment is a different factor. But he's entitled to express the judgment. And it is your right to probe the basis for that judgment. I don't think I can go beyond that.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I can say, and I thank the Commission Council for pointing out the italicized words on page 84. And if you play with my power, my name is Burnham, I will hurt you. In your judgment, how far was Mr. Burnham prepared to take that word?
Mr. Chairman, I thought you said the field was covered already. How is my good friend again asking the same question? I thought yourself, I thought the Commissioner and Commissioner Jairam already said that the field was covered on the evidence.
I am going beyond that. I am raising a question on what he said in his evidence. Thank you.
We have a different approach from now on.
Thank you.
No questions will be asked,
And none will be.
You sound like one of them.
Yeah, so he said, so when you were here, people gave an opinion.
This is beginning to sound like serious warfare.
Yeah, no questions will be asked. And then Mr. Ram always tries to tell me, don't ask any questions. You don't have no questions, the witness, don't, and all these things.
I hope it's kept a bit forensic boundaries, please.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Lindsay, when you say the extent to which, in your opinion, Mr. Warren was prepared to go to hurt his political opponents.
This is my personal judgment. I think board is necessary to maintain power and to deal with anybody or any sets of persons who challenge that power. If it means hurting them, he is prepared to do it. If he feels he had no other way around it.
Hurt would include personal violence, including death.
Yes.
And is it your judgment that Walter Rodney's death was a result of such a determination to maintain power?
Yes.
Chairman, I object to the question. Then I don't know where we carry this inquiry. A question about who murdered somebody is an opinion.
He didn't say that was not murdered anybody.
And
He
he said that
this judgment that he was prepared to go as far as hurting the person.
Have you would allow that, Mr. Chairman? What is the basis Mr. Agunsi has to say that?
That says nothing about who killed what one.
Mr. Agunsi was operating a cell of 25 cells in the city, gave the guns out. So that is the basis on which you say that?
I don't follow it. I don't follow it.
Mr. Chairman, we will, when the time comes, I will explore Dr. Rodney's mind. What he's doing with a bomb in his vehicle, etc., and I trust that we don't have any objections. I will now show you what Dr. Rodney really was.
Well, you may have objections, but not from the chairman. But I can't anticipate whether one of your fellows may object. But that time has not yet come, so we need
Short here.
Please proceed, Mr. Ram.
yes, Mr.
This
Wazir.
evidence is valuable, so you know what it is.
Was it your judgment that Dr. Rodney's death was a result of Mr. Barnes' determination to maintain power?
Mr. Chairman, is that what you said? He's saying that, in other words, Rodney's death was because of the Barnes Act. That's what he's saying. There's no precedent to it. I would like a ruling on it, sir. I'm saying something as serious as the death of a person, you attributed it to another person. When the other person was not in the vehicle, the only person in that vehicle was either Benjamin Smith and Dr. Rodney Bishop. So how do you want to bring Fox Gordon to be the person? I don't know that he was in the vehicle. I don't know that Mr. Ogunsi could be in a position to decide what Mr. Gordon did and what he didn't do. For him to do, he has to come and hard facts, not guesses. You talk about the president. Is he encouraging us to say that the current presidents did this and did that without any factual basis there? Is that what we do?
The question is, I understand, because when you talk about these evidence to be determination to maintain power, which is different from saying that person killed Rodney.
It is.
But he's entitled to say that. What we find is something else, because as we properly said before, a basis for that judgment must be laid. So Mr. Ram, you can say that when you have a basis to try and lay judgment, but we have to give it any time.
Well, sir, the evidence, Mr. Ogunsi gave evidence on 2 occasions, 2 days. It's in the transcript. I was merely asking questions arising out of the evidence he gave. I don't wish to repeat everything that Mr. Ogunsi has said.
Please proceed.
That was my question. And I think you said yes.
Yes.
On that note, Commissioners, that's my final question.
We continue. Thank you very much. Is there any other council? Questions, Mr. Senator? Council is now invited to raise them.
At this time, given the extent of Mr. Ogunsi's evidence, I will review it. I would have no further questions from the citizens.
Mr. Chair, will you permit me to make a brief candid remark?
not the voters know.
As a citizen of Guyana, as a person who have been in political engagement in this country for more than 4 decades, I want to say to the present rulers of the country that they should learn from the PNC's situation as it relates to this Rodney inquiry. There were many in the PNC who believed that they could live out the Rodney affair. And there are many in the PPP who believe that they could live out the over 300 other African youths who were executed under this regime. And this is a grievous matter. It's not a matter between the PNC and the PPP. It is not a matter between ACNU and the PPP. It's a matter between the African community and the present rulers. And my humble advice to them is that
you were really here to provide testimony. This is not a platform spin. And not that we might want to say. I'm not sure that that way will make you to use the opportunity to testify, but also make a political speech. That is not the purpose of this commission.
I accept you.
And in the circumstances, I'm going to thank you for testifying. You might be caused some inconvenience in the process. We hope it will not be too much. And I'm really going to again thank you for coming forward and testifying. And I'm not going to make you use this occasion to address the nation in a political speech. That is not what the commission is here for. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Karen D'Souza. Thank you. Please affirm. Karen D'Souza, do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the evidence proved and nothing but truth?
I do.
Thank you. Pasha?
Mr. Souza, this last testify on the speculation therefore.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming, and you will now be questioned by council and our table of members.
Mr. Chairman, just permit me to comment, please. In reviewing the evidence of this as other witnesses, I have noted that in putting in the statements given, very often the date of the statement is not included. So if we will look at the verbatim report for the 29th of April at pages 1.over-2, we will see that her statement went into evidence, but the statement is not dated, and reference is made to her evidence of the coroner's inquest, but the date for that again is not there. So I would just propose before the witness comments is for us to have the records reflect that the statement of Mr. Souza, which is in evidence, is dated the can we have the date for Mr. Souza's statement, please? It's dated the 13th of June, 1980. Thank you. And the coroner's inquest.
KS1.
And the coroner's inquest is, I just have it as February 1988. And no specific date in February. Thank you.
Did you just say the 30th of June 1980?
Yes.
Well, if you look at the state that KES1, it starts off by saying statement of events on the night of Friday, 30th June 1980. But I am not seeing a date, either typed or manuscript date on my copy, so other than what I just read.
The certificate attached to the statement reads that the above statement is true and correct production, is a true and correct production of the statement I gave to the Guyana Police Force in relation to this matter sometime during the year 1980, and I repeat and rely on the same. When it came to this particular witness, Mr. Souza would have opted to rely on the written statement that we already had in our possession via the Guyana Police Force CID 5.
What is the date? That's the first question now.
The date was
Item 6, the date is, we will go to KMLJ WR1. Again, there is no date, but it is in the exhibit TAMLJ WR1. We have a copy here, and I don't know if the bottom of the page came off or what, but it just gives us the date when, no, and I suspect we didn't get the page with the certification and the date. That may be the problem.
But it wouldn't be June 13th.
No.
Well, I think that a point of general importance is being made that the transcription is down, but we should bear in mind that we should always try to make sure that once the date is given and that the date of the statement first given and that is recorded. That did directly relate to welcome Mark, some attorneys at the back table, they don't want to question who goes first. Am I representing Mr. Peters?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. D'Souza. I'm Selwyn Peters. I represent the Guyana Trades Union Congress. I have a few questions for you. Now let's establish this with respect to Dr. Walter Rodney. We agreed that Dr. Walter Rodney was a brilliant intellectual, correct? You'd agree with that?
I would.
He received his doctorate at 24 years of age.
I believe so.
Yes. He was a very charismatic individual.
I've heard that said.
Do you know that for a fact in your interaction with him?
I don't quite understand the description charismatic.
A charismatic person is a person who can be very diplomatic and who can even tell you to go to hell, but in a very nice way.
Then I would say he was not.
Okay. How would you describe his
Mr.
person?
Peters, just for my benefit, where did you get that definition of charismatic from?
Mr. Chairman, reading any number of articles in preparation for this hearing, I can't point you to one specific article or event right now that would maybe have that characterization of him. But you say that you wouldn't use that characterization of him.
Correct.
Very well. Would you agree that?
Based on your definition of charismatic.
Well, that was just a simplistic definition is,
That's the definition that I'm working with, council. The one that you just gave.
Probably I can assist. There is a definition here which says charisma has two senses: compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. Is that what you were meaning to get to, Mr. Peters, or something else?
Madam Samuel Brown, that is the precise definition that I was driving at.
How do those two descriptions relate?
I think you've answered already now. I think Mr. Peters, you may have to, not to be his numbers, but go back to Max Weber's definition of charisma, charismatic, you position go back to Max Weber's definition of charisma.
Well, sir.
Well, now let's proceed.
Yes. You'd agree that Dr. Walter Rodney had mass appeal?
I would.
You'd also agree that in the political context, Dr. Walter Rodney was seen as a threat to both the PNC and the PDP.
Yes.
Would you also agree that Dr. Walter Rodney wanted a change in the government of the day, and if the change couldn't come about through the political process, it would have been by any means necessary?
That is a statement that he made in his speech, yes.
And the last time you were here, you testified with respect to the speech that the Prime Minister of the day, Fort Gordon, gave at the third biannual conference. You remember your evidence in respect to that?
I do.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. In respect to the speech, Fort Gordon spoke about a rally that the WPA had in Sophia.
In Campbellville.
Or in Campbellville. But it was near to the PNC's turf, as I understood the speech. And,
certainly not walking distance.
okay, I don't know the geography, so you can assist us. In any event, the essence that I got from Gordon's speech was he was saying that he had no issue with peaceful assembly so long as it was lawful and not conducted in a way that can cause physical antagonism between the parties. Would you agree?
I certainly never understood that to be the context of the speech.
Well, on page 29 of his speech, he considered the conduct of the WPA as, and I put it in quotation marks, iPass. What would you want? Madam Commissioner, I'm referring to the third biannual Congress speech. I think it's an EK document that Dr. Kwayana presented to us.
We're just trying to get the reference for the records.
Bravo.
But I think we could proceed in the meantime, but just so that the records will have it.
What does he pass?
iPass. Well, that's what I'm going to ask the witness. But I believe in the Guyana context, iPass means a gross insult.
Are you referring, Council, to EK12?
Mr. Jerome, I don't have the direct exhibit list or exhibit number, but it's a third biannual Congress speech.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
That would be a gross insult.
EK2, third biennial Congress speech, 22nd, 1979, 22nd to 26th of August. We have no power in the mics, Mr. Chair, but I hope that my voice carries. EK3. Yeah.
EK3
22nd to 26th of August, 1970. EK3.
was tendered on the 28th of May 2014 through His Sequoia.
Yeah.
It's a report on the third biennial Congress and the People's National Congress, August 22nd and 26th of 1970.
Thank you very much for that. There's another boy question that asked it. I think those who are following it need to understand what you're saying, Mr. Williams. You're saying that it is regarded as the gross disrespect or gross insult to who?
Well, let me read, Ms. D'Souza, what Mr. Burnham said. He said, this is the current leader on page 29. He says, all right, easy. My dear comrades, now comrades, we allow them for the time being, as I said, to hold meetings, and we will always allow them to hold meetings. But they must understand that when you hold meetings, you must be sure you do not offend the audience. No, you cannot offend your audience. You must not mistake other people's audience for your own. An audience is a wife that belongs exclusively to one. So, comrades, the youngsters applied to hold a meeting 1 block away from the PNC Congress. Well, then, we have to say this, and in quotation mark, IPAS must stop.
Sorry, I've lost the question.
The question was phrased differently. And the question that I said, or I was going to suggest to you, that Prime Minister Burnham had no issues with peaceful assembly so long as they were lawful and not conducted in a way that can cause physical antagonism between the parties. I believe you answered that one. And then I went on to the next question, and I said in the speech at the third biannual Congress, page 109, you would agree that Burnham considered it IPAS that the WPA came into Sophia in the vicinity of the People's National Congress headquarters to hold a public meeting.
And I'm saying that the premise of the question is wrong. The WPA was not in Sophia.
Right, but that is what his speech is, that WPA applied to hold a meeting 1 block away from Congress Place. That's what his speech reflects.
What are you asking me to respond to?
I was asking you to respond because the chairman asked a question about the issue of IPAS. You would agree that in the Guyana context, IPAS means a gross insult.
I actually don't like the term IPAS. It speaks to disrespect between people. It speaks to differing power relations. And most of the time we speak about children as fast adults. And it is in that context that I would read that, would understand that statement.
So you're saying that Prime Minister Burnham attempted to infantilize the WPA when he made that statement?
I think he was speaking to his own superiority and paramountcy.
Now, would you agree that when Dr. Rodney addressed Fort Burnham as King Kong can be accepted as a derogatory stereotype?
It might, depending on who is saying it.
And in the context within which Dr. Rodney used those terms, I'm going to suggest to you that it was a derogatory, racist stereotype directed at Forrest Burnham.
And I would disagree.
And in that speech, Burnham retaliated by addressing his adversaries within the WP as little boys.
Sorry, as
Burnham retaliated by addressing his adversaries within the WP as little boys.
As what?
Little boys, L-I-L-B-O-Y-S.
little boys. I don't recall that, but I'll take your word for it. You have the speech.
And I'm going to suggest that within that political milieu that existed at the material time, that it appears that trading insults between those two political parties became the norm.
I believe that the political expression in Guyana has always been one of trying to find imaginative and descriptive terms for opposing parties. I'm not sure that has changed considerably since then.
In respect to the August 22nd, 1979 public meeting, that meeting where in Campbellville that you spoke of earlier that the police broke up, would you agree that no permit was granted to the WPA to hold that meeting?
I don't recall
You don't recall what?
whether a permit had been granted or not.
Were you
Whether
ever?
permits had been granted and withdrawn, or whether no permits had been granted.
I appreciate that. Were you at a particular meeting in question?
I was.
Right. And
I'm sorry, Mr. Peters, just to be clear, I thought the evidence previously had been, and I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, that you didn't need permits for meetings. What you needed was permits for loudspeakers or noisemakers, as some people have depicted it. I think that is what the evidence indicated. If I'm wrong, I could be corrected. Not that it would make a fundamental difference to your question, but just for the accuracy of the record. Mr. Williams, you get your head first?
Well, the WPA has been contending that. I mean, I haven't addressed my legal methodology.
Thank
But
you.
that's the way it coincides with the practice now.
Okay,
I don't know,
no, I'm back at 70.
If the commander of the division doesn't give you permission to hold a meeting, whether it's a noisy instrument or not, that's a different
The
matter.
original evidence in this commission had been the noise instrument, but I won't retain us on that. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, there's a section in the Police Act, but I don't want to have to go to the Police Act right now, but there are legislative provisions